Hey, what's up, people? We are about to start the show off. I know a lot of people have wanted to see what's going on with the Pelicans and what we think about their big man rotation and how people fit, perhaps any potential targets. So
Because
that's what
we're
today's
we're
podcast is going to
we're
be
definitely not
about.
opinionated. We're not definitely not opinionated about it, so no one knows what we think at all.
Yeah, no strong feelings. We've never done something like this before, so bear with us. The way this is going to work is the chat's open for y'all. I need y'all to fill the chat with some suggestions on who you would like to see on the Pelicans. We'll take your suggestions. We'll go through some research in real time and figure out what the best fit is. Look at some real stats, update a spreadsheet that we have, and present that to you. And at the end of the show, hopefully, um, rank the best fits and decide.
And
Hey,
send it to
this
David
is
Griffin.
yeah, send it to David Griffin. We'll CC him
Yep.
after this show and actually
Yep.
tag him on Twitter. So, without further ado, I guess we can begin um, the I guess the introductory portion of the show. People are trickling in. So the reason we wanted to do this show is over the last few games, the three losses that the Pelicans have had, we've noticed somewhat of a trend, and it's not just over the last three games. It's kind of been a trend this season with how they're playing JV, how they utilize him, and on both ends, offensively, defensively, and where his minutes are coming from. And it seems to us, it's in our opinion, there isn't a great deal of trust for JV at the end of games, and we're not entirely sure why there isn't a great deal of trust for JV at the end of games, given what he was able to accomplish last year. But there's a predetermined rotation heading into a game, regardless of how the game goes, regardless of what the outcome of the game is. JV can't seem to get it on the floor in the fourth quarter and in overtime. And now the Pelicans have lost several games in a row where offensive rebounding has been a key factor, being able to prevent the opponent bigs from tearing up, Larry Nance, even, guys like CJ McCollum who end up with the bigs on the switches. Um, we feel it need, okay, to find someone that the Pelicans would be willing to utilize because clearly they just don't have that belief in JV. I think Mason and I are big JV supporters and think that they could actually use him in those minutes and perhaps have different outcomes in those games. But we recognize what we're seeing on the court, which is they don't play him. They will not play him.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think a couple things bear mentioning here. The first is that I I don't think Jonas has been quite the same player as last year. I think the role has been different. He's been a little bit. I don't know why I'm going to say less mobile. So where he's missed some shots he made last year. I think that's fair to say too. But also, he gives the Pelicans things that they clearly lack. I mean, I think it's that simple. And the team and the team's been good with him on the floor. I think any sort of defensive issues with Jonas on the floor are over exaggerated. He's been the same guy he's been defensively over the last few years. I mean, he's been a plus defender. He was in Memphis. He was towards the end of his career in Toronto. At the start of his career in Toronto, he was not that guy, and he has been that guy for a few years. And just because I think it's important to recognize, just because a guy isn't blocking 3 shots a game, and just because he's not super athletic and can't switch on every screen, doesn't make that person a bad defender. And so he's not. I mean, he's going to be exposed in certain situations. I think we would both agree with that. But at the same time, there are things he does right now that helps the team, and no one else on the Pelicans can do at the level that he can. And so it's a little surprising to see how his role has kind of diminished this season. And look, I also want to make it clear that this is not a Larry Nance bashing pod. The Pelicans have been good with him. He's been a focal point in some great lineups for them. He needs to have he has a vital role in this Pelicans team. And so it's just there are certain things that he doesn't do for this team that Jonas does, and it's almost like the Pelicans have different problems depending on who they put in the game. And it's not to say that there's that one player solves all the problems the other player creates. It's just you've got to find the right balance, and certain situations call for certain players and certain styles of play. And it just doesn't seem like, regardless of the utility that Jonas may have, it just doesn't seem like that's a path the Pelicans are serious about going down from here on out. And so here we are talking about what we think could be the right solution in the long term.
All right. So, with any great science experiment, there's a control variable. And the control variable for us is JV. The bigs that we are measuring
Yep.
that might fit on the Pelicans have to be measured against JV, have to be measured against what's already on the roster. So I think we're going to kick off our show looking at JV stats first, where he's impactful, where he's not impactful. And then we'll start taking the suggestions from the chat. So we haven't done anything like this before, but before we kick that off, just want to do a quick shout out to Birdsall Law Firm, who is the official injury lawyer of Boo Crew Media, and we appreciate them. So if you have any needs, make sure you hit up Birdsall Law Firm. Anyways, so I'm gonna pull up my screen here. We're gonna do this. I don't know how this is going to work. And let's see. Oh, okay. I know how it's going to work. Let me adjust my monitors. All right.
I'm throwing names in as you work on this. Oh wow, we got double Shamit here. Let's do it.
Oh, we got double me here. Okay. Hold on.
I think it could have worked. I don't know.
Window. Okay, here we go. All right, how about that? Is it double me? Do we see chat? Let us know what you're seeing. We haven't done this before. You should be seeing a spreadsheet right now.
No, well, hopefully people can. I guess I'm a poor. I guess so let me pull up YouTube just to make sure. That's probably the right way to do this. Nope. Yes. What did you add your other screen to the stream?
Yeah, I did. All right, let me try this again. All right. I feel like it should be sharing. It says I'm presenting. There we go.
I clicked add to stream. That was just the one step we were missing. We got it now.
That was the step we were missing. Okay. All right. Here we go. So this is an ultra wide screen. So forgive the length of this, but as you see, we have player. We have some players listed here. These are some of the stats that we're going to be looking at. Why don't we go ahead and add JV in there? So why don't I do that?
Let's. I'm gonna try to blow up the size. It's gonna be way too small for people. Hold on.
Why don't I just?
I got it. There we go. That should be good.
Okay. Can y'all read? Let us know if you can read what we're actually typing.
I think you need to do it on your side too. So I blew it up on my end, but if you go to the top left and just zoom to 200%.
All right. Zoom to 200%.
So right by the copy paste logos.
There we go.
You see where? Yeah. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. All right. We're getting close.
Hopefully this is better.
Yeah. Okay. We're good.
All right. Hopefully this is better. Anyways, actually, Mason, because of how big this monitor is, let me actually share a different view. Because
you're close. Maybe if you do 250, I think that might
no, because I'm thinking if I go to cleaning the glass here, it's going to be the same issue where it's really
fair
tiny.
Enough. Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
And so let me just share the other screen. So bear with us, folks. I appreciate your patience here.
Yep.
We are technologically challenged in the greatest of ways.
All right. So what we've got so far, I'll just kind of relay. The names I've seen are Myles Turner, Bam Adebayo, Clint Capella, Mo Bamba. I think those are the big ones so far that we've got documented.
There we go. That's much more readable.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I can probably change this back to the normal 100%. Or I can make it a little bigger. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we're going to look at Jonas Valanciunas first. First and foremost, we want to evaluate him as a rim protector. So what I'm going to do is go to the NBA.com advanced stats website. We're going to look at, in tracking stats, his defensive impact. And we actually want to go look at players here, and they reset the stuff, which is fine. We'll go back to his defensive impact. And the way we want to do it first is I like to look at totals because that helps filter out players who've only contested 1 or 2 shots at the rim. So as you can see here, there's a lot of players that have contested a lot of shots. So I'm just going to do a small little filter first, where it is shots contested, and I want that to be greater than 100. I'm pretty sure he's contested 100. Okay. And then I want to look at some of like the best ones and see like where we're at. So you see like some of the best names here are Jonas here at 49%. He's given up 49% at the rim, which is incredible. Right? Jonas is having a great season. Right behind him, Draymond Green at 50%. And then you kind of see some of some weird names, and then some of like the rim protectors you're used to seeing. Brooke Lopez here at 52, Jared Allen here at 53. Nick Claxton's having a good season, so on and so forth. So we're gonna look at JV here. So we're gonna search for Jonas, and as you can see, he's given up 67.8% at the rim, 121 contests. That's not good, to say the least. That is something that they're going to be challenged with. And if we were to remove this player filter and go work backwards, he's actually right here towards the bottom, right next to Jokic, right next to Pirtle, right next to Bol. So Mason, how do you feel about that stat in particular right now?
Not good, but I guess my thought was that, and this adds some complexities, so maybe we just stick to this year, but we probably want to look at recent years. Like this is still a smaller sample size we're dealing with, and if you look back to the last season, does that give you a better kind of idea of how is this a trend that we think is going to sustain throughout the course of the year, right? Because I think it's a fair question given that we've only played 30 games or so.
All right. Well, we can look at last year's stats, and I don't think they're going to be much better. So let's let this load, and then I'll do the filter. I'll just search for Jonas, and he's at 68%, which is worse. So as an individual rim protector, he hasn't been good. We can go ahead and update this actually. So what was it? 67 point something percent. Going back to this year. Yeah, 67.8%. So we're just gonna leave that here. 67.8%. Not great at all. So that's step number one. The second thing we wanted to look at was defensive rebounding percentage. There's a couple different ways for us to look at this. You can look at it in Clean the Glass. You can look at it in Basketball Reference. I kind of like looking at Cleaning the Glass because it gives you the players and the percentiles like just right there. So we're gonna search for Jonas Valanciunas, and instead of offensive overview, we're gonna look at defense and rebounding. So what we're gonna look at is field goals that have he's defensively rebounded. So right now, as you can see, he's been absolutely elite his whole career. But right now he's at 26.1% on field goals that he's defensively rebounded, which is a really good number. Really, really good. And actually, one thing I wanted to show you all is in Basketball Reference, he was amongst the top in individual defensive rebounding rate. Now this one includes free throws that you missed free throws, unlike the Cleaning the Glass number where the free throws counted separately. But as you can see here, he's second in the league at defensive rebounded percentage. Second in the league. That's pretty elite. So we can update that here. We're going to use the Cleaning the Glass number just to keep it at field goals rebounded. So 26.1%. We're going to update that here. And then the next thing we're going to look at is the team impact he has on rebounding. And the way we're going to do that is, hello, kitty. The way we're going to do that is, again, stick on Cleaning the Glass and stay on the on-off stats. And as you can see here, there's this little thing called team efficiency and 4 factors. And this lets you know if this person makes one thing better or another. So like on the offensive glass, he's making the Pelicans 3.8% better, which is 83rd percentile. And on the defensive glass, or how often are opponents getting offensive rebounds with him on the court, he's been consistently elite the past 3 years. This year, the impact on the glass isn't quite the same. It's at 65th percentile. So we're gonna write this number into our spreadsheet, the minus 1.1%, which is okay, not that great. And we want to look at if wait, Mason, before I keep zooming through these stats, any thoughts on why his defensive on off for the rebounding has dropped this year?
Is less positive than it used to be?
Yeah. So going back to the cleaning the glass page, as you can see,
it's been
here,
much better before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Candidly, I don't think he's been quite as impactful on the glass this year. I mean, I think he's still clearly the best option outside of maybe Hernan Gomez, but there's more that Jonas obviously gives you all around. But you always have to think about this in team context, right? Because no matter who you are, you're still surrounded by four players, four teammates, and so there's probably a bit of team impact to that. And who he's sharing the floor with. But I think I don't have a really good explanation for why hasn't been quite as good, given that or the team hasn't been quite as good with him on the floor as usual.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point about the teammates is a good one, because if you look at the Pelicans, if I go to the Pelicans page and if I pull up the Pelicans rosters, you can see here that's the Pelicans roster. I want to go to defense and rebounding for all of them. And something I want to point out is so Jonas, obviously, as an individual rebounder, 93rd percentile. Brandon Ingram for a wing is a really good rebounder. They've missed Ingram. That's hurt. But his individual number is like lower than, let's say, like Larry Nance's number. It's higher than Zion's number. That's new. But Jonas has been getting a lot of minutes without Brandon Ingram on the court. With CJ, even though he's decent for a combo guard, this 10.8 number is really small. He's not a good rebounder. Likewise, Trey Murphy is just not rebounding the ball, and he started more games than Brandon Ingram has this year. Herbert Jones is a 6th percentile defensive rebounder. So the wings that the Pelicans are playing with just aren't getting the job done. From Zion, from Herb, to Trey, even Najee has not rebounded the ball well this year, and I think that's just kind of like impacted the Pelicans' overall ability to grab rebounds. Jonas is only one man; he can only do so much. So we're gonna leave it at that. Let's talk about 3-point percentage. Let's see if he actually spaces the floor. We watch him; we know what he is. I'm just gonna go pull up to his attempts here. He's only attempting 1.5 per game, and he's shooting 34%. So I'm just gonna put that here: 34.1%. A 1.5 per game, and that's not really good. We know he's not causing panic amongst defenses. He's not really getting the attempts up to have opponents respect him, because we know guys like Myles Turner and Brook Lopez don't always shoot that well, but they get the attempts up, and that changes how the defense defends you. So that's not good at all. Do you feel, Mason, that the Pelicans should be using Jonas as letting him shoot more from 3-point land?
No.
Is that a good way to use him?
No, that's not. I don't think that's the skills that teams aren't going to respect him, right? I just don't see many centers out there. We've had this discussion, I think, a number of times, but you want a center who can knock down a wide open three if they get the shot. But I don't think you can reasonably expect that very many centers in the league at all are going to actually draw a defender, especially when you're sharing the floor with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, right? They're going to have to concede something, and you're just not going to see that happen. And they're going to have a exceptional level of 3-point shooting relative to expectations for that to actually matter. So the question becomes, is Jonas materially different than other decent shooting centers in the context of the offense? And I would say no. And so that's the overall. I think it's a good news story. But I think people need to, I think in the big picture, and something I probably might say again in this episode, is we need to temper our expectations for what really constitutes a floor spacing center. Fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I also like this suggestion here: should do 3-point attempts per 36 rather than per game. So Bamba, et cetera, are compatible. I think we can actually do it with 3-point rate. So I'm just going to add a column that is 3-point rate. I want to add a column not to the left, to the right. Okay.
I'm gonna be as you go through this modifying some stuff a little bit just because I think sometimes, especially when it comes to 3-point percentage, sample size is king. And so I might kind of look at multi-year instead of just 1 year, but I don't think the story changes for Jonas in particular.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So his 3-point attempt rate, we'll just go back to his advanced numbers here, and his 3-point attempt rate is about 16%. So that's what we'll leave it at, is 16%. So not that high. Not that high volume of shots of his are threes. So next thing I wanted to look at is if a big man has a material impact on deterring people from getting to the rim. So sometimes you may have a bad individual contest percentage, but if by you being on the floor, opponents aren't getting to the rim, that still has a lot of value. And what does it do to your overall team's, rim defense, but when you're on the floor? So again, I'm going back to cleaning the glass to look at these two stats. We're going to go to Jonas Valanciunas, and then we're going to go back to on-AF stats. This time what we're going to do is we're going to look at opponent shooting frequency, and then we're going to look at the opponent shooting accuracy. So I'm going to click on this frequency, and I think this may surprise a lot of folks, but Jonas has been good to great to elite throughout his entire career. When he's on the court, his teams do not give up shots at the rim. Like, he has a material impact on a team's defense by preventing opponents from getting to the rim. I think there's a lot of theories about why that is. Mason, I have a few of my own. Why do you think that's the case, where he's just had this good of an impact throughout his career?
He's big. I mean, that's the first thing. And it's the scheme too. I think that that his teams have played a lot of drop, and so you've got he's sitting back in the paint a decent amount, and it's kind of conceding jump shooting. And so I think the Pelicans in recent years specifically have been not been great at allowing at 3-point defense essentially, and some of that's by design. And so that's kind of I can't speak to his entire career why that's been a consistent theme, apart from just he's a big human, and sometimes just seeing that versus seeing a smaller switchable defense is less enticing to go at. But I think it's part that and part scheme.
Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, I really do think that, kind of like Marc Gasol was. Obviously, Marc Gasol was a defensive player of the year candidate year after year, and just a much better overall defender. But Gasol had the same limitations in terms of like foot speed and not being quite a vertical athlete. But what Gasol made up for it was a lot of smarts and really good positioning, knowing when to just plant yourself in the paint, reset your 3-second clock by tagging cutters. When your matchup has the ball in their hand, you can stay in the paint as long as you want. That's like one of the rules. And a lot of these bigs that are positionally very sound end up having a positive impact on rim defense just by virtue of being there. And it helps being a massive human being who is threatening and as imposing as Jonas is. So good marks for Jonas here. We're going to look at opponent shooting accuracy at the rim when he's on, and pretty solid marks here as well. So like, even though individually when he's contesting that shot, he's given up a relatively high percentage to the league, the team defense as a whole when he's on the court, pretty solid, when it comes to his deterring at the rim. So I'm going to add this right here. What was it? -2.8.
An idea. We should do some color coding, just to help, especially for people who join late. Like maybe just something like red, yellow, green, or something like that, to show like what we kind of view as far as the numbers and what they say. What do you think?
I figure we could do that at the end. We could maybe do like conditional formatting, and just it'll do it for us to rank it amongst the people that we're looking at. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the way to do it, and we'll do a nice little like recap of the players we've talked about. Do we want the one thing I want to talk about is we should probably include a column for overall like defensive on-off, right? Like that's something that's probably important.
Yeah. Okay. I'm over here trying to format to create space, so we got it now.
And we're gonna stick a clean the glass on there. So we're just gonna look at team efficiency, and his defensive on-off. After a good 3-year run where he's had a positive impact on the defensive end, this year he hasn't been quite so good on, or the units with him on haven't been quite so good. So that is Jonas this year is plus 0.2. I guess it's taken as a formula, so we'll just do 0.2. Okay. Vibes. What do you think about the vibes, Mason?
The devil you know, man. I mean, not that that's probably a poor way to contextualize Jonas, but I mean, I think it's positive. I don't really know, this season if things have changed materially, but I think it's hard to say that anything. It's hard to say anything negative about the Pelicans' vibes this season in general. And so I'm hard pressed to say that this would be it would be a bad thing for Jonas. Could it continue? I mean,
let's rank it let's grade it from eight, like an A, B, C, D, F scale. Let's just have that be the grade.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid. I'm trying to think of what would constitute an A for anybody in this.
I'd say it's a B plus.
Yeah, I was thinking B plus too.
E plus, good teammate. All right, we love Jonas.
You can reorder this, by the way, if you want to look at other guys, but first.
Yeah. So now I want to pitch it to the chat.
I've been writing down stuff that people
want to look at. So chat, go ahead and put your name in. Obviously, we had Myles Turner listed because we figured he's going to be a popular candidate, but we really want this to be interactive. And
I was grabbing names from the list, so these are names that people have already shared with us. Just by the way.
Yeah.
On the left. So Myles, Bam, Clint, Mo, and
those are names that I've already.
Yeah, people have already shared those.
I guess we can just look at. I guess we can look at Myles Turner. I guess we can do that. Okay, so we're gonna start the same process for Myles Turner. What we want to do is look at their field goal percentage at the rim and yada 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 yada. So let's do that. Let's go see where Myles Turner is at. So Myles Turner. 57.8 field goal percentage allowed at the rim, which is really, really good. That's credit to him. He's a really good rim protector. So 57.8% allowed at the rim. Defensive rebounding percentage. We said we were going to use the cleaning the glass numbers for this. So to be consistent, let's look at Myles Turner. Let's go look at his rebounding stats. And we wanted to look at his field goal. So he's at 21.1%, 77th percentile for a big, which is his best mark in his career, actually. Look at these block rates, by the way.
Yeah.
Really good shot blocker there. Really good shot blocker. But, throughout his career, he's been a poor rebounder, to say the least, and he's having his best rebounding year at 21.1%. So we'll put that out here. Mason, feel free to chime in at any point if you want me to look at anything else while we're zooming through these stats here. Ooh, what did I just do? We're going to look at his defensive on-offs. And so the next thing we wanted to look at is if he's able to impact the glass in a significant kind of way. So we're going to look at the defensive. And look at that. He's been a positive impact on the defensive glass this year. Very impressive. And it's been 4 years straight that he's been a positive impact on the defensive glass. Did you expect that, Mason?
Yeah. The reason is because a lot of his minutes over the last years have been tied to Sabonis. So,
well, what about this year? Who there's no Sabonis out there.
No. I mean, I think, look, I'm not trying to I feel like we can't caveat Turner and not caveat other folks, who we're going to talk about. But no, I mean, I think that, look, I don't think he's a bad rebounder. I just don't think he's one that's going to impact your team performance by himself tremendously.
Look at the offensive rebounding rate when he's on the court. Second percentile, fourth percentile, fifth percentile, first percentile. Teams just do not offensive rebound when he's on the court. Or he can
just get out of Zion's way. That's fine.
I mean, I think that part of it has to do with the fact that he just, he likes to play on the perimeter more, so he's not close to the basket and to get those rebounds. But that's not great. But anyways, we were looking at defensive rebounding percentage. We weren't really looking at offensive rebounding percentage because that's not something we consider a weakness for the team. Right? Yeah, I think so. I think that's how it works. It was 1.9%. All right, 3-point percentage since the 2021 season. Oh, nice. You put the attempts in there. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's since last season?
No, the season before. So you're getting like a 2.5 season sample size here, which I think is
2.5 season sample size. So what we're going to do is look at the 2.5 season sample size, which Myles Turner is shooting really well this year, 43%.
Got your number for you. I can drop it in.
Okay, drop it in. So I'm just going to talk about it here in the chat while you drop it in. So 482 attempts, shot 35% from three over the last 2.5 years, which is interesting because the 35% number on the surface looks decent. But if you drill down, it's 33%, 33%, and then 43%. So you really have to figure out what's sustainable here. Is he on a heater? Is the sample big enough for it? Yeah, so that's what I would pay attention to is, hey, this is a significant jump based off of his career. Prior to this, he's only had 1 year above 37%, which was in 2018-19. Again, not a terribly huge sample. Prior to this year, the 3 years prior to that, he was at 33.8%, which to me is a more accurate representation of who he is as a spacer. But who knows? Maybe this is the year he's turned it around. 43% is the real deal.
And one other thing to add here, I think I don't think we need to caveat at all about openness on these. I mean, I feel like most centers, when they're shooting threes, they're wide open. They're you can probably count the number of players on one hand who are of fives who are taking contested 3-pointers. So I think we can call that a wash across all these players here.
Yeah. We're not. I don't believe. Maybe when we get if someone suggests Cat, maybe that guy had shoots more contested threes than other folks, but. You're right. You're right. I appreciate the comment, Bruce. Thank you for sticking it in. We can add Jonathan Isaac to the list of people we want to look at. So yeah, we can definitely add him to the list.
He's not too busy being a Fox News analyst. You sure he's going to play basketball again? We gotta.
what I really want to know is since we're on the Jonathan Isaac topic, it's kind of like the Lonzo situation right now, right? Like what any update you get, it's you're just like, oh, is he ever going to play basketball again? Like what is up with his lower extremities? And you hear the stuff coming out of Chicago about Lonzo and he can't even run right now. And it feels like Orlando's going on radio silent on whatever Isaac is. So but we can get to him. Definitely going to go through a bunch of different bigs here. Segasaur says 1+ for Turner is he shoots almost all of his above the break threes, not corner threes, same as Brook Lopez, which is better for defense. And I think that is a very interesting point because it allows you to get back quicker if you miss a shot. But do you feel, Mason, that provides more spacing? Or wait, what do you think the orientation of where those threes are coming from are meaningfully important?
Offensive versatility wise, I can buy it because that's I feel like for a lot of players who maybe aren't that great of volume 3-point shooters, that's what you just have them working on at the corner threes because those are the most high efficiency shots. And so demonstrating the ability to knock threes down from other places on the court, it forces defenders to go further out and it spreads apart the defense. And so I can buy it. Again, I don't think there's a material difference no one's going to go out to guard him. He can take those above the break threes. And as a defense, I'm just not going to care, especially when there's Zion and BI hanging around.
What I will say, I think, beyond that, a lot of the help defense in today's NBA comes from the corner. That's where the low man is hanging out. Mm-hmm. And what teams do So like if he's shooting above the break threes, I think that's a little bit of a harder spot to help from, especially if you're doing like pick and pops with him. The big man has to dig in from the wing rather than from the corner, and there's probably a smaller person on that weak side as a low man now to be your last line of defense at the rim. So I do think that configuration, if you can draw a big out of the paint, and like you said, they're not going to be on him like glue, but maybe when they're at the free throw line area, it's a little bit more of a difficult place to send help from than what they're used to. So I could buy, I could buy that this configuration is actually more beneficial for the offense as well. I could buy that. I could buy that. So here's a follow-up comment from Segasaurus. If you were only a corner three shooter and you aren't a threat while you were out doing dribble handoffs with Zion running open special, that is a great point. That is a great point. I'm very glad that you watched the open special video. All right, let's continue on with Turner. Got sidetracked here. We're looking at his 3-point attempt rate. The attempt rate I listed was only for the last season. Is that what we're going to stick to, Mason? I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, I mean the attempt rate I think is not going to be super volatile year to year. So and I think that's that'll be more of a reflection of who the player is right now is that rate this year.
And if anything, his has gone down this year, but the prior years it's also been gotten up to almost half of his shots have been from three in prior years. This year it's a little low at 35.4%. So we're just gonna do that here. Now we're gonna look at really fun stats, see what kind of impact he's had at the rim, opposing rim frequency, and after two big years of having good impact, the Pacers haven't been doing too well at keeping opponents away from the rim this year. But their roster is significantly different, right? They don't have Sabonis. They brought in all these young guards. Buddy Hield is playing significant minutes, and I think a lot of this also has to do with how good your perimeter defense is and how good your perimeter wings are. So I wouldn't say this is entirely all on Myles, and I wouldn't hold this as a knock against him, but something to consider, something we're going to document.
But I guess I do wonder how much there's a giant wrinkle here with the Sabonis Myles Turner duo, because that is a traditional kind of 4-5 combo that the extent to which we don't really see that often in the NBA anymore. So there is the argument that if Turner isn't at the rim, Sabonis is, and while Sabonis isn't by any means a shot blocker or a great interior defender, there's still a body there. Versus, if you're running smaller, you may have you may be all out on the wing, and there could be no one at the rim waiting. And so I think there's just the mere presence might be impacting things to some degree. Versus now it's just kind of Myles, and there's not as much time with the traditional four that he used to see.
Well, I think they're playing Jalen Smith a lot, who is also like a shot blocker, like a similar Myles Turner type player, right? So it's not that they don't have length there. I really do think this probably has to do with their quality of perimeter defenders and the point of attack defenders. Because if you don't have good, we saw it on the Stan Van Gundy, right? When Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo would just continually get screened off at the point of attack, and opponents would just live either at the rim or at three when Stan Van Gundy's teams would overcommit to take away the rim. And I think it has to do with their perimeter defense, and it also has to do with if the lineups you're in are turning the ball over a lot and are in transition a lot. So I mean, we could kind of check that stuff pretty quickly to see if, transition is happening a lot. And it seems like there really isn't, lineups is a part of our getting a lot of steals. So they are turning the ball over a decent amount. So it could be that. It just could be that. But it says all transition, they're actually better. So, yeah, I don't know. I would go back to the perimeter defense. Sometimes it's just noise. Who knows? But it's something we're documenting.
Yeah. I just wonder what the difference, I feel like the Pacers haven't had a great perimeter defense for a while now. And so I guess I'm trying to think about what the personnel changes were for the Pacers year over year.
Yeah, well, it was previously it was Oladipo and Brogdon, right? And Oladipo at his peak was an All-NBA defender, and Brogdon was decent. They've had a healthier TJ McConnell in the past. I think that's helped. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's possible that Buddy Hield's just that bad of a defender, man. Okay, accuracy. This is a big one, and when he's been on the court, it's been elite, just about elite every single year, with the opponents and how they're shooting at the rim. So this year, again, less stellar mark than normal, but still a good mark, and he's been elite for most of his career. That is something he is known to do. He's good at shutting down the paint. So we're gonna do minus 0.6% here. And for fun, we're gonna look at the defensive on off. That's the one that we were gonna look at. And right now, it's just a meager 1.5%, which has been pretty good for his most of his career. Definitely having some strong years in terms of impact there. But I don't think the Pacers are a particularly good team. They're very young, and that's definitely a product of what makes your defense good or not. And I think it's reflective of who's on the court with you. So that's what we'll do. That's Myles Turner, folks. Wait, it was minus 1.5, right? Yeah, just double checking. So many tabs to go through. Oh, vibes. We got to talk about vibes here.
All right. Myles Turner vibes. I feel like he's not a guy who's going to demand a ton of shots. I think he'd probably want more shots than like Capella or even Bamba just because he's younger. But I'm trying to think of like what would be the impact of trying to integrate him into this team, right? I think that's the vibes question. And I don't see it overwhelmingly.
First of all, how would you? Okay, so if a player on your team goes on Woj's podcast and openly says "trade me to the Lakers," I mean that's paraphrasing.
That's a good point.
Where do you put that in the vibes?
That man's been in trade rumors for so long though that like I'm almost like willing to give him a little bit of a pass for it because at some point you just get tired of it, especially when your team is just kind of mediocre.
You know where he gets a pass for? Like the Pacers gave Ayton a max contract. They gave Ayton a max contract while Turner was still on the roster. I mean, if that doesn't tell you the future of what they think, their team needs to look like, yeah, I would be in Myles Turner corner as well here in terms of, yeah, that team clearly don't want me. What scares me a little, you've mentioned the expiring there, so the $18 million expiring. He needs a new deal.
Yep,
and
he won't shots. He'll want stats, right?
Yeah. So like one, how much of his productivity, like career high defensive rebound rate, career high from three and all that, how much of this is contract year Turner? And two, at what level are you willing to extend him at? If he asks for $20 million a year, do you do that?
For how long?
Let's say he asks for 360.
360. I kind of think you'd have to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, you're committing to be a tax team.
Like in a vacuum, 360 feels like fair value to me for Turner. I'm not saying I think the Pelicans. I'm not saying he's got to go into the tax for because I don't. I think we both kind of made our points clear on that, but I don't think that's an outrageous contract and based on what he's doing right now.
Do you close games with him at the 5 then?
Situationally, yeah, not against every team, but like I don't trust him any more than I trust Jonas in the pick and roll. Like I think deep in the playoffs you wouldn't, and that's a problem, right? I wouldn't.
Really,
you
don't think they just commit to drop defense there? Like that would just be the system, right?
What has Willie Green done to make you think that he would close with Myles Turner?
That is a great question. So if that's how you feel, 360 is not an outrageous contract to you. Are you going to pay $20 million a year to a dude that you're going to bench?
I'm not saying. Well, I already said he's not the player I go into the tax for the Pelicans. I just don't think. I think if you asked like every GM in the league is 360 an outrageous contract for Turner, I think most would say that's, it feels right.
Would they? Every GM in the league has had an opportunity to trade for him, and nobody has.
Jonas got 15. I mean, and Myles Turner he's going to be 27 this year. So it's, I mean, if you're giving him 3 years, you're not playing with fire as far as his age.
I don't know. It's tough, man. Because Jonas got 15. You look at what Robert Williams on. You look at what Wendell Carter is on, in terms of his contract. You look at everything else like some of these bigs have gotten, and it's tough. And I think what you're asking for is the Pelicans to commit a lot of money to someone they may or may not close with, which is
right.
What we're trying to do here on this podcast is find someone they will close with.
Right. And so this is the point here. It says, exactly Larry. So closing. It's like the point is to find the guy that makes you not have to close with Larry. I am the lineup the Pelicans have used to close the games recently. I am 100% fine with that lineup, just going and blitzing people at the end of the first quarter and third quarter and the start of the second and fourth quarter. I don't want that lineup closing games against good teams. I think the flaws will be very pronounced and it'll cause problems. And so the whole point here is to figure out who's the guy that can close with instead of Larry that kind of that raises your ceiling and limits your weaknesses to the same degree. I don't think so. I don't think that's true. I don't think you'd have to trade Larry. Larry's he's on a $10 million contract for the next couple of years. I mean, he's being paid like a third big, and that's exactly what he should be.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much as saving Willie from himself, Benny. I really don't think that. I think it's just about can you make it so they have it's not really a decision. It's obvious. It's obvious that they're going to play CJ, even though I think that's going to become a conversation in the near future. But can you make it so hey, this person has enough equity as a player, given their reputation, they're making that kind of money, et cetera, to where you have to play that person. Otherwise, locker room politics get really sour. Mm-hmm. Which I think that's got to be a variable here is if they don't play Myles Turner and he's in a contract year, does he have potential to sour? If you trade for him and then you're not closing games with him and he's getting pre-prescribed minutes, it's 23 minutes a game, just like JV, and he knows that he's up for a new deal, does he hold that against you?
Yeah. Even if Myles Turner had one extra season on his contract, I really think that would make a world of difference here. It's just the expiring makes this very, very complicated.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to say the upside the downside for the vibes is greater than with Jonas.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad vibes. So I'm not willing to give him any kind of failing grade, but I would just say C, average with potential to be good, potential to be bad. So I think C is fair.
Yeah.
Okay, C. Moving on to the next guy, Bam Adebayo. Man, that is crazy. That's a crazy one. I think he would be a great fit regardless of and I don't even care about what these stats turn up for Bam Adebayo. I'm excited to dig into them, but that is a max player. That is a all NBA player. That is a all defense player. Someone that could maybe win Defensive Player of the Year, in the right situation.
Yeah.
And
so I guess I've been jotting players down that folks have said. If we think that there's a guy who's just too unattainable to be a real part of this conversation, we can skip it. We both love Bam, but do we think the Heat have any interest in trading Bam? If the answer is no, then maybe wasting our time. What do you think?
I think let's come back to Bam.
Okay.
Let's come back to Bam. I think that's.
And for the next one, we got both Capella and John Collins. Do we want to just pick one from the Hawks and roll with that?
Let's look at both. Although I would say let's look at Collins first because he's the guy that's in every trade rumor, right? He's the one that Mark Stein writes an article about every month. The Hawks are still interested in trading John Collins. They want to get off of him because luxury tax purposes, which honestly doesn't really make sense to me. They're not a good team, and I don't know, man. Weird stuff going on with the Hawks. But let's look at John Collins. And Let's look at some of these same stats here. So let's look at how Mr. Collins is doing at the rim. I honestly have no idea. Wait, before I look him up, I need you to guess. Give me a guess.
At Woody's his defensive
Field goal percentage at the rim.
I assume it's so. If we're looking, based on the first couple we looked at, I would assume it's somewhere between Myles and Jonas. I would say it's probably closer to Myles than Jonas, around like maybe 60% or so. But I think the volume's going to be lower because you've got Capella there. So I don't think he's doing as much contesting at the rim.
Okay.
So I'd say, yeah. So let's see.
All right, let's look at John Collins. So John Collins, 59.4%. Wait, hold on. Zach, excuse me.
Did we just accidentally find the next big for the Pelicans? What's going on here?
He shoots threes, right? So we did want to look at per game just to kind of like look at his volume real quick. Where is he? Zach Collins, baby. Is this the secret big? Is this who Willie would trust? I don't think he would, dude. Zach Collins annoys me, man. I feel like he's a dirty player. Anyways, John Collins is averaging, 1.4 blocks per game, 59.4, which is pretty solid. Mediocre volume per game when it comes to contesting those shots. Obviously, Capella is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So if you look at Capella, he's averaging 6.3 contested game, 55%, which is a better margin than Collins. But I do think the two of them, I wish there was a way to look up one stat without the other and to see like what the difference is. But this isn't bad. It's significantly better than what Jonas is doing. So I think it's important because they're still playing Trae Young, and Trae's one of the worst defenders in the league. So
by the way, did you hear the Zach Lowe trade idea on the most recent Low Post?
Oh no! What did he say?
He said one of his most fun trades he can think of right now is Towns for Trae Young straight up.
No, well, I don't understand why Atlanta would do that. I think one, Towns makes way more money than Trae, even though Trae's probably going to be up for that amount and want it. He does. Two, Trae's just better. I don't know, man. Would you do it?
If I'm Atlanta, no. I don't think I'm an immediate no. To like, I guess to the extent you are, but I think Atlanta wins that trade. Or sorry, yeah, I think Atlanta loses that trade.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like they would have to get rid of D'Angelo Russell in Minnesota. So your backcourt would be Anthony Edwards and Trae Young. That's a good backcourt. And then Rudy Gobert trying to patch everything together. They would need to find wings, and I just don't know how they would get the wings that they're trying to find. Anyways, John Collins, 59.4% at the rim. That's really good. That's solid. Good for you, John Collins. Let's look at his defensive rebounding percentage. Excited to dig down here on John Collins. Actually, because it's the first thing that pops up, let's just look at what his defensive splits are. Oh my gosh, he's having a great impact on defense and has been consistently positive on his career. So I'm actually going to skip ahead on one of the columns and defensive on-off minus 5.7, which is amazing. The best mark we have seen yet. John Collins, you continue to surprise us, my man. We'll look at his on-off stats, and we want to go to what did we want to look at? His defensive rebounding, right? That's what we wanted to look at first. I keep forgetting. Defensive rebounding. Okay, 18.8%. Not terribly great. Definitely the lowest mark that we've seen amongst the centers yet. Not rebounding as quite as well as Myles Turner, even. But, he's been around this 18, 19 mark, 17 for his whole career, which is all right. Not fantastic. So we'll just put that here. Oops, I keep clicking on the wrong tag. 18.8%. So what kind of impact is he having on his team's rebounding though? That's something for us to check out. So let's look at his on-off here. Here we go. So, wow. They are significantly worse at rebounding when he's off the court. That's kind of surprising, Mason. Do you think it has to do with Capella? Should we look at what the Collins non-Capella numbers are?
Yeah, I maybe it's not quite as I might think that it's not going to be as impactful as we think, and maybe it is just Collins being able to be a part of good defensive rebounding lineups. But
I mean, that's really impressive. Well, okay, so let's look at. I think that's worth digging into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at his position. So like when he plays center, and so when he plays center, he hasn't played much center this year. Only 3% of his minutes have come at center, and the team's defensive rebounding rate isn't that high. So at 30% of the possessions where he plays center, again, there hasn't been that many possessions. They're giving up an offensive rebounding on, which is not very good. Does that hold up in the past? Does the rate consistently drop? And yeah, as you can see, like the rate consistently drops when he plays center. So that's something to consider. Is he definitely more impactful on the glass, or is the minutes that he plays on the units that he plays on are better on the glass when he plays at Capella than when he's the sole center? I think that is. I'm glad we dug into that.
Yeah, and then, I mean the number of possessions he's played at the 5 are. I'm looking on my screen at the just the lineup data with Collins on and Capella off, and it's like and the defensive rebounding rates below average, but not terrible. But most of that's because he's playing with Okongwu in his other minutes without Capella. And the vast majority.
Wait, let's pull that up for the folks here. So off the court, we'll put Clint Capella. Filter lineups.
Yeah, so it's So 42nd percentile is not terrible. It's just below average.
40. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. You would think that a Murray, Hunter, a Okongwu, Collins lineup should rebound, right?
Yeah.
Like Murray's a good rebounder. He gets those triple doubles. I'm sure like a lot of those are uncontested rebounds. Hunter, I guess, is not a good rebounder. But between Collins and Okongwu, I figured they would grab some stuff. But yeah, it's tough. It's funny though, like when Trey. Oh, what I want to see is
Trey's off.
Is off. All right, spit it out for me. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Trae Young killing the rebounding differentials. I'm glad we looked this up. So shocking. That is crazy. Those units are great. Look at the defense,
so even with Capella, off the floor, as long as great. The sample size is
99th percentile on defense when Trae is off the court. That is
do that last year.
Nuts.
Switch the year to last season.
Absolutely crazy. Wow.
You said switch the year. Go back to last season. See how much that holds, because you should still get a decent sample size, right?
Yeah, that's a good part. Let's see. Okay, still a good rebounding team without Trae. Still,
that's Collins at the 5 too for a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean that's what it. Yeah, this is Trae and Capella off the court. Like that's promising. That's
so wild, man. Like look, your typical point guard is not going to have that much of impact one way or the other on rebounding. So the degree to which that Trae Young impacts the rebounding is pretty ridiculous. Like, I don't know. Like, how much is CJ going to swing the Pelicans' defensive rebounding one way or the other, like bad or good? I feel like it's just not that much. And so to see Trae Young have that big of an impact negatively is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I like subjectively when CJ and Devontae are on the court, that seems like murder on the glass. But I think it's it has to do with the fact that when those two are on the court, usually Larry's on the court as well, and you're just like, okay, we got no rebounders out there. Yeah, dude, I think if you start Collins, man, again, I was gonna say like if you start him with Herb and all these other dudes, but everyone I'm listing is just not a good rebounder. So the Pelicans wings just have to do better at rebounding. That being said, start Dyson, man. Dyson's the future. I think you can fix the rebounding issues. You start CJ, Dyson, BI, Zion, and Collins. I could talk myself into that lineup. So here's something I want to ask you. You run two simulations 82 games, one with Jonas, one with Collins. Where would you, knowing everything you know about this team now, given how the players are playing, which team would you think finishes higher in the regular season? Which team do you think has a higher potential in the playoffs? And I'm curious how you feel about their offense and defensive efficiencies.
I think you win more games with Jonas. I think your playoff ceiling is higher with Collins.
Okay. I want to hear your rationale why you think they win more games with Jonas than Collins.
I think, again, you just put this in the simulation. So I'm normalizing for whatever bias Willie Green has against Jonas. And so I'm elevating his minutes in the simulation to between where they are right now and where they were last season. And so I think that given what we've seen with the Pelicans so far, Jonas is just a better fit for the Pelicans' specific weaknesses. But that being said, I think he has clear limitations as when you face good teams in the playoffs who can play in the pick and roll and do what Chris Paul essentially did to Jonas last season. I think John Collins is probably a little bit better fit there. And he doesn't, and I think the data shows you that he can be part of a good defensive rebounding team. But that's I think where I stand. Are you where are you at?
Dude, I'll be honest. I think they win more games because I don't think there's a I don't think there'll be a defensive drop off. If the argument is like, okay, he can't guard Embiid, he can't guard Jokic. Jokic gave Jonas like 37. And has abused Jonas every time they've played. But thankfully, we have Willie Hernangomez waiting for the right Jokic matchup. Just anytime breaking case of Jokic, we got that emergency. But I think the offense would be better, which is the Pelicans' bigger issue right now, rather than defense. Not necessarily because he can hit threes or anything. Which you've already filled in the attempt there. About the same shooting percentage as Myles Turner, about the same amount of attempts as Myles Turner. I did want to pull up to see if he has, as big of a discrepancy as Turner with, Turner being 33%, and then 43%, whereas it's, a little bit more consistent with Collins.
Do you really, but I like right now we have a Brandon Ingram size hole in the lineup. So do you really think that the offensive impact from a team perspective is that significant from Jonas to Collins? Because I think the ability to mash the boards and get second chance opportunities that you have with Jonas matters. But obviously I think Collins is the more versatile offensive weapon. It's just like he's probably your fourth option at that point. And so are you really maximizing that asset, I guess?
I do. I think the lob threat is a variable that they just don't have right now. I think he can score in the transition game a little more. I think they can play faster. I think the screen and roll game with him and like Ingram, I think he would stabilize the non-Zion units in a way that Jonas hasn't been able to, and partly that's because of how they're using Jonas. Mm-hmm. But I do think they would use Collins differently. And in terms of being a fourth option, like he very clearly is being treated as one in Atlanta this year, averaging 12.3 points per game. That's like the lowest of his career since his rookie year. He had a year where he put up 21 and 10, that was a really good year for him. He's only shooting 21% from three this year. The sample is like really small in that. You would expect it to normalize because the 3 years prior, he averaged, where am I even looking? 38.8%. Like you'd expect that to come back. But
the inverse of what's happening with Myles Turner, kind of.
The inverse, yeah. And for 36 minutes, like he's not like a high volume 3-point attempt guy, but like his 3-point attempt rate's still higher than Jonas. It's on par with Myles Turner. So I don't know, man. I feel like Collins would make him better.
And to be clear here, I think I would kind of prefer that we don't even talk about Capella, because I just think that there's no debate in my mind who I'd rather go get from the Hawks, and it's John Collins. And so, like I respect Capella's ability to provide that interior defense, but I don't think he does. I don't see him as a guy that can close with in the playoffs. I don't think
Capella?
he's that dude. Yeah,
I think they could. Capella's really switchable, man. He was a big reason why Houston had so much success against Golden State in their prime. I don't know. Capella's good. Would they close with him? I don't know. I think Capella's really good, but you're right. I think your assessment is right that they won't. Like Atlanta's not going to give him up. Not cheaply. Not for Jonas.
Who? Capella?
Yeah. I think Capella's the one they want to keep. Capella's and Trey's fit is just really nice. I think they truly enjoy that. Anyways, I'm finding some surprising things out about John Collins and his fit. Let's look at the opponent rim frequency real quick. On off stats. Now I want to see this stuff with Trey off the court. So I feel like we gotta have a caveat with everything we look at him. Not bad here, minus 1.5%. So I'm gonna put that on the sheet.
And even better the year before that, right? That's what I saw.
Yeah, even better the year before that, which was minus 2.9%. And then we look at the accuracy, and really good the last year, and this year not as good.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
We'll have to look at the Capella impact on that, especially, right, and see what the overlap is, because that's the hub of the defense.
Yeah, I think so. So it was 0.2%. I do want to look at, now you got me curious. I think you're able to look at this stuff without Capella. We want to look at it without Capella and without Trey, right? That's how we want to look at it.
Capella, definitely.
I say without Trey too.
Okay, well, yeah.
Let's see. Defense.
You're on 21, 22. Or no, you're not. No, you're not.
No, not. Yeah, frequency. So when Capella and Trey are off the court, it looks like they give up a high number of rim attempts. But not a high number. I don't understand why cleaning the glass makes it seem like giving up a low number of mid-range shots is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a bad shot profile right here.
Yeah, like that. These numbers don't. Yeah, this is a bad shot profile. Yeah. So that it hasn't been great.
Without Capella, this has been bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it has not been great.
Take Trae Young off just to see as the sample size gets bigger what it looks like.
Okay. That's just this year though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So accuracy.
Yeah, teams are shooting 70% at the rim without Capella on the court. That's kind of crazy.
What about frequency? My goodness.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. Okay. I just want to see if that's like a big change from last year, I guess. Now you got me curious.
Now we got a
I didn't know we would discover all these things.
Yeah, I mean, now we got a huge Clint Capella size caveat on all these numbers with John Collins. I mean, the rim defense with him without Capella is clearly not good.
Yeah.
But so last year, this is not the same. Yeah.
Oh, this is sorry. Rim frequency. Okay. Not bad.
Okay. And last season, those were more with him at the 5. So maybe this is just like the roast of Onyeka Okongwu instead, and not John Collins because
not bad.
Yeah. He was playing more at the 5 last season when Clint Capella was off the floor, and so maybe it's not quite as bad as initially expected.
Yeah. Wait, no. Yeah, not bad. Again, not bad without Trey and Capella. Really good when you add the Trey here. Okay, cool. Okay. We'll live with that. I still think there's something in there.
I do too. With Collins at the 5, I think alongside Zion, I think it doesn't solve all your problems, obviously, but I think that there's an argument there.
So let's talk about vibes here. I think this is a fun conversation with regards to Collins because, like Turner, he's been in trade rumors for seems like eternity, right? Every year they're getting closer to trading John Collins. He obviously did not like the fact that Atlanta waited that long to give him the contract that he wanted. I think he wants more shots Every young player wants more shots. So I think there's downside with regards to those things. I do think there is an element of not liking Trae Young. I've spoken to some coaches who coach the Hawks, and I think there is a pretty significant element of not wanting to play with Trae Young. So I'm curious to see what he looks like in a different environment, but I don't think that's indicative of if it's going to be like great as soon as he leaves that environment. There's no guarantee that you put him on the Pels and all of a sudden he's ultimate team guy. I will say, personal anecdote, I don't know how much this means anything. I sat courtside next to the Hawks bench last year, and John Collins, I was watching like a lot of people's interactions. He seemed like a truly great guy. Like just always getting up for his teammates, always dapping them up. But not only that, like there were some kids sitting like very close to us. He like spent a significant portion of the game like interacting with them, like making sure he ordered candy for them. It seemed like he was like a really wholesome guy. So from a good human perspective, I think he checks the box there. It's from the business perspective, is he going to be happy with his shots? His contract is what it is, right? He's got, as you mentioned, was that 3 years, 4 years left on his deal? 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Was it a player option?
Yeah, he's got 3 years. Yeah, so effectively he got as much as 4 years left. I mean, if he picks that one up. So
yeah. Definitely pricey. Pricier than the 360 extension that we discussed with Turner. But yeah, man, it's what would you give? I think I would also put C for Collins in terms of vibes. I think the upside with his vibes is greater than Turner, but I think there's probably similar downside.
I was going higher, and like kind of like that B- range. I was going to put him squarely in between Myles Turner and Jonas. I feel like there is a bit of like getting out of Atlanta and getting into another winning situation should help. I think the Pelicans also look. Is his role with a fully healthy team going to be where he gets a bunch of shots? No, probably not. But I think that the Pelicans can maybe do a better job than Atlanta's been doing of getting him opportunities to thrive offensively, even if it's not.
Oh, are you sure about that? Have you seen how they use Jonas Valanciunas?
So,
are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm like kind of projecting my annoyance about Jonas through John Collins. But I mean, look, he's got. I think he may be viewed a little bit. He would be. I think Willie would view him closer to a Larry Nance-esque type player than a Jonas type player, just in how he fits into the offense. And so I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic on how Willie would use him. That's all.
Okay, so I think what we need a column for is will Willie use him? Yes, I would think. So let me ask you, do you think he's more likely to use Collins than Turner?
Yes.
Interesting. I don't know, man. I feel like Turner's reputation precedes itself, and Willie's always been a defense guy. And if Collins is the type of guy that like wants his shots and blah 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 blah, that doesn't seem to me that's a Willie type of person. We've already seen the fact that he doesn't trust Trae at those end of those moments, even though the data says you got to play Trae. Clearly not a veteran enough, not gritty enough, whatever. I think Willie Green has a type, and I don't know if John Collins fits that type.
Yeah, hard to know for sure.
Okay. I think we've spent a lot of time on this. I did want to like talk about potential trade scenarios before we hit the next couple ones. So let's talk. We've done two, Turner and Collins. We'll spend a significant amount of time on them. For Turner, what do you think his trade market is? We know that they've wanted the picks from the Lakers in expiring contracts. They don't want to take on additional money. Do you think there's a deal that can be made between Jonas and and the Pacers to get Turner to the Pelicans. Wow, fumbled those words.
Sure. I mean, the Pelicans have the ability to trade for anyone. I think as far as what the value, so what we know is that the Lakers don't want to trade 2 unprotected picks for Myles Turner and Buddy, right? Like that's the benchmark, I guess. And so I would not give up any significant draft capital of consequence to turn Jonas into Myles Turner. So, like, if we're talking like a lottery Jonas and a lottery protected pick, would I do it? I mean, if you told me that Willie was going to use Myles Turner more than he's using Willie, I think about
Jonas, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll use use Turner more than he's using Jonas, and but yeah, I mean, big pictures. I don't think I would be willing to give up to be the highest bidder in a Myles Turner auction, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I don't think the Pacers would really want Jonas, given how they play. They play very up tempo, space it out, 3-point style. Which honestly, like, I muted myself. I'm sorry.
Okay, didn't know if it was just me.
For their shooters might create more options, but I really don't think they're going to be that interested in Jonas. It might have to be a 3-team deal.
Mm-hmm.
Collins, on the other hand, would need matching salary, so it would have to be something like Jonas, Devontae, which, yeah, I mean, the salaries match there, but the Hawks end up taking a little bit more money, so maybe they throw in
Jackson maybe instead. Jackson probably that makes it work. I think the Pelicans are probably flirting with the tax in that scenario, but I think the money is fine.
I think I did a trade where it was like Jackson and Temple, and it was like the exact amount. Like, it was like within like $200K.
Okay.
But either way, assuming they can make the salary work, how many picks are you willing to give up for John Collins?
So more than Turner, not tremendously more, because there is the additional dollar amount. Like, he's getting paid more, at least next season. He's locked into.
Is he on a declining deal, or is it?
It's ascending. Yeah, it's 23.5 this year, and then 25.3, 26.6, and then so that his player options actually the same in 24.5 is 25.6, which is pretty interesting. It holds constant, but yeah. So it's the same situation where, like, you're committing to being a tax team. Essentially, you kind of have to be if you're going to make that move.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can maneuver under the tax a little bit, but they would have to get off Devontae.
They wouldn't be able to use any sort of exceptions, but if they did it, I guess they
didn't use any exceptions this year or last year. They've punted on the MLE 2 straight years.
But now you actually have a good reason to use it, and that's because you feel like you're getting closer to title contention, whereas before there was no good reason to do it. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if the goal is, hey, let me sign a tax level mid-level player or get a good player and go into the tax. I'd rather just get that good player. Like, I don't think that $5 million guy is going to make that much of a difference on this team, given how they're drafting, given who they have to give minutes to.
Like, would you? I guess here's what I think about. Like, I would not. The trade the Pelicans made for CJ, I would do that for Collins for sure. I think that's about the ceiling, and I think it's too much for what I would give up for Myles Turner.
Okay.
Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would trade this year's pick top 10 protected. So what that means is if the Lakers pick gets in the top 10, Pelicans keep it. But if it's not in the top 10, then it goes to Atlanta. That's the way I would do it.
So one pick is all you give up for Collins?
Yes. I don't think he has a real market.
I'm guessing no firsts for Myles Turner.
I really don't like Myles Turner. I don't think he's as that big of an upgrade over Jonas to where I would give up that kind of a first. Maybe a fake first. So it's like top 25 protected, and then it turns into 2 seconds.
No one trades those top 25 protected firsts.
People do it all the time.
Top 25?
Do like first? A reverse. I would do a reverse protection then. Like a protected 1 through 10 and 20 to 30. So if it falls in the middle, you got it. Which is weird, like, but sure.
Because at least if it's late in the first round, you're getting another cheap contract to add to your roster. So I get it.
Yeah. Okay. That's the way I would do it.
I think the moral of the story is we still haven't found the guy.
Still haven't found the guy. Some interesting candidates, right? There's so let's move on to Mo Bamba. Talk to DeAndre Ayton. I want to add Kristaps in there for later.
I saw that tweet from you the other day. I was like, "Oh, all right." I think the tables have turned a little bit.
We can wrap up with those three. I think there's been suggestions of Lowry Markkanen in the chat, and I just don't think Utah's trading him. And so I think the conversation for Lowry begin with like 2 picks, 3 picks. But given how well Utah has played, I don't think Utah's trading him. And then I think there's guys like Olynyk, who we've brought up in previous podcasts, and I think it would be fair to include him in this. I think for the purpose of time, we're going to leave Olynyk out of here.
So we want to hit Mo, we want to hit Porzingis, and who else? Who's the other guy?
Ayton.
Okay.
and I think, we want to leave Olynyk out of this because, like, I also, I don't think that they're going to try to close with Olynyk at any point if Olynyk was on this team, but I do think he gives you – Olynyk would be the type of person, like, I would want to add you're just adding like Jackson and Temple to go get Olynyk or Devontae straight up for Olynyk. That kind of a trade that you just bolstering your current depth. That's what I would do, not like a Jonas replacement. And I think you could argue Bamba is the same. Like I probably wouldn't replace Jonas with Bamba on the whole, but I can be talked more into Bamba as a low usage starter, like a 20-minute player. And then closing with Larry the majority of the time. I can be talked into that if that's just like a different direction the Pelicans want to go in. So let's look at Mr. Bamba here. Controversial fella. Definitely have some opinionated folks on him who think he's no good. But I think he's an interesting candidate. So the first thing we're going to look at is what he's doing at the rim. How is he protecting the rim? All right. So Mr. Bamba, 59.3% allowed at the rim. Still significantly better than any of the Pelicans. Oh, we wanted to do totals because why not? He had 3 blocks today, so I wonder if this number changes after today. Anyways, 59.3% allowed at the rim, which is pretty much in line with the guys that we've been looking at, Turner and Collins. So pretty good number. Again, significantly better than Jonas, which is important. Look at his defensive rebounding rate. And we can look at his defensive on-offs as well, which those, like Bamba's on-off numbers in general, I think are going to be such a cesspool of noisy data for us to look at because of how bad the Magic have been. But let's look at it anyway. So his regular defensive on-off is -1 this season. It's all right. As you can tell, his career's just been really weird when it comes to that. Between playing behind Vucevic and now Wendell Carter's on the team and just in general, just being on bad teams. There's really no semblance of any consistency. And I think he's been a product of that. If he was consistent and good, he would be earning more minutes than he had and have a bigger contract. There's real concerns about that, but we're looking into him. So -1% overall in the defensive on-off here, which still puts him, outside of Collins in line with our other fellas. We're going to look at his defensive rebounding percentage.
You want to make a plug too for our comments?
What? Wait, what?
No, nothing. Never mind.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I wasn't even watching the screen, dude. I was so lost in this, bro. Get out of here! How do we remove this person? Put him in timeout.
There we go. Blocked.
All right, they're blocked. Sorry, folks. What in the world? Okay, so defensive rebounding percentage. For his career, he's been above 20, right? So 20, 20, 23, 20 this year, coming off the bench. Lowest usage of his career is at 18%. So I'm just gonna write 18%. But listeners, viewers, do take note for his career. He's been much higher. Best year being 23%, which is close to Jonas's current numbers. So 18%. 18% on the defensive rebound rate, which is lower than anybody we've looked at so far. But his high is higher than also anybody's we've looked for, except for Jonas. His high, career high, because this is career high for Turner. Collins is taking a drop, but he still never hit 23%. So something to keep in mind. What kind of impact is he having on the glass? Let's take a look. Oh, we were looking at the glass. Okay. So really not a good impact. Throughout his career, those units have not rebounded well with him on the court. That's not a promising sign, giving up that many offensive rebounds. I'm not going to do the research to see, try to find excuses for him. We can take this at face value. I think he's only had 1 year where he's made the rebounding better. Yeah, just not good at all. So 2% here, which is by far the worst mark of anybody. 3-point shooting, you've already populated this stuff. Again, these three players, very similar over the last 3 years in terms of how they've shot in their attempts. So I think that's interesting. I think it's super interesting.
Because and we'll talk a little bit more when we get down to the next person, but I think there's a whole bunch of perception versus reality type conversations to be had about Turner, Collins, Bamba, Porzingis, even looking at those numbers. About what the data says versus what people think about them, and I think can be differences there. But ultimately, right, the data matters. That's because that's literally how many points that player added from 3-point range. But also it matters how defenses react to these players too. So we'll get there. But I don't think anyone's running out to contest a Mo Bamba 3 at this point. Yeah. But he's the one that he's the youngest and he has the most room to grow there. And so we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, I think with Bamba, so let's pull up let's pull up his stats. Where did that go? Yeah, so with Bamba, the last 2 years, 38% last year, 39% this year from 3. That's a good trend. But his attempt rate, so almost half of his shots now are coming from 3. And he's having a really efficient year, 61% true shooting. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive for him. Good for him. So yeah, 46% of his shots are coming from 3. Definitely the one that's willing to let it fly the most. Now let's look at his on-off stats with regarding to the rim. Okay, so with the frequency, it's not too bad the last couple of years. -2%, -3.2% the last year. So let's add that in. So far, he's the only one approaching Jonas with regard to deterrence. And let's look at the accuracy. And not so great here this year. Although for his career, this mark has looked decent to good. So, but not that great this year. All right. His contract, I think, is the cheapest out of any of them. He's probably the cheapest to acquire in terms of a trade. You don't have to give him a first round pick for him. It also, lets you punt the can down the road, like you have it expiring next year if you need it. Obviously, if you opt into the team option. What are your general thoughts on Bamba?
I guess of the players we've talked about so far, he'd be the guy I go after, just because I feel like the investment you need to make in some of the other options has too many question marks. And I'd rather see what a guy who's clearly trending upward and isn't afraid to shoot from three and has had success doing it. So that's a powerful 1-2 punch, is that 3-point rate and the 3-point percentage. Between those two things and the fact that he's as young as he is, and there's some additional upside there, just getting him next to Fred Vinson can't be a bad thing, right? And so I really think that there's there's some opportunity to take a kind of a lower risk swing than what some of these other guys may represent. And it's I just think that to trade for Turner, to trade for Collins, you better be sure that those guys are going to be major factors, not just during the regular season, but in the playoffs too. With Bamba, you can make that move, and if he's not that guy, you haven't risked anything, right? The acquisition cost and the opportunity cost isn't that material to me. And so definitely the most enticing to me of the guys we talked about so far.
So you're thinking about it in perspective of, I can go get Bamba and not move from Jonas, and he can just be on the roster as a proof of concept for some of these others guys. Is that your general thought process?
Yeah, and I'm not even saying. I mean, yes. I mean, there's no reason you have to trade Jonas if you're going to get him, if you're going to get Bamba. But yeah, I mean, I'm wary based on what we've seen from Willie Green's preferences so far, as to how much it's going to cost to get these guys, what the level of investment you're basically implying the Pelicans are making in those guys in the future. Is it worth it? And I'm not there on Turner and Collins. I'm closer on Collins, but I think Bamba it feels lower risk to me. And for a lot of Pelicans fans, I feel like, who have been pretty adamant about no need to make a big move right now, let's let this play out, I think that could be enticing for a lot of folks.
Do you think so? Let's talk about trades, right? $10 million. Jackson Hayes makes about 6.8. You could toss in Kyra if you wanted to. Man, that's rough. A guy comes back from ACL, you just move him immediately. That I don't think that's a grift move. But in terms of making the money work, Kyra would do it. Obviously, Devontae straight up would do it if that's how you want to get rid of the Devontae contract.
Jackson
so I do think you have to attach assets to the Devontae contract to be able to do it. But I'm curious if we can get it done with Devontae in like some seconds, right? Jackson, Temple, that those are familiar constructions to sort of get it done. If the Pelicans didn't really have tax issues, does Jackson straight up for him work?
I don't think so. I think you need a little bit more. But
okay, Jackson and Billy, right? So they have ways of reaching that without touching their core rotation,
right?
But the question then becomes again: is Willie going to play him at all, ever? Right? Like, is how do you find minutes for him? I put out a minutes construction on Twitter the other day where you could find 18 minutes for him, right? 17, 18 minutes for him, which is what he's playing right now. I just don't know. Yeah, I mean, and then like you would start him if Jonas got hurt. I don't know. That's tough. Where would you put him in the vibe section?
I mean, seems like a total wild card to me. I mean, I think actually, forget it. He went to University of Texas. A+ vibes. I say that with Jackson Hayes literally on the roster, but
bad vibes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think. Look, I don't see how you, unless you trade for him and let's throw him on the bench. In which case the vibes aren't that important anyway. It's a wild card, but I don't think there's any significant risk one way or the other. I mean, so
So here's what I think. I think there's a tweet on Twitter from the playoffs last year, the play-in last year, Mo Bamba tweeting out, man, something to the effect of, "Wow, like Willie Green, like really like lays it all out on the floor or whatever. That's the type of coach I could play for." That's
I
good
didn't see
vibes.
that. Didn't see that
That's
one.
good
Yeah, that was
vibes.
good vibes. Yep.
That's good vibes. That being said, I do question if Willie would play him. Like if we are in this exact situation, if Bamba was on the roster, and this Jazz game happened 2 months from now, or the Phoenix game happened 2 months from now, and you need a rebounder on the court, is he getting on the court over Larry? I don't think he is. Right? Like if Jonas is on the roster, Larry's on the roster, is Bamba going to get in over both of them? I don't think he is.
He's not.
Like no shot.
Nope.
No shot. But it's like you said, like low investment insurance. Maybe you get a look at him if Jonas goes down, and see how things happen. But or like this Bucks game that's coming up where Larry is ruled out because of Achilles soreness, and you need literally any functional backup big.
Yeah. And you could also, one thing I'm surprised that hasn't happened this year. I think so. Before the season, I was of the opinion that the Pelicans' depth gives them the luxury of giving Jonas rest games, just saying, the DNP conditioning or whatever. Instead, the Pelicans decided, let's just play Jonas fewer minutes, but play him in all the games. And like, I think, having a guy like Bamba gives you more of an ability to just say, Jonas going to sit this one out because he's been playing a lot and he takes a beating every single game. So that's kind of what I would hope would happen, but not that I expected that would actually happen.
I mean, if anything, I think it would just like the worst case. I don't know if it's the worst case scenario, but there is like a small world that exists where Willie just plays Jonas less and less and less and less and less and less. And that may be a good problem because if Bamba's good enough to glue Jonas to the bench, then that's probably a good thing. But I think it's a very slim possibility, not a real one. I still believe that if they went and got Bamba today, he's probably seeing DNPs unless they absolutely had to play him. That's my take on it. Even though I would play him a lot more, I just don't think Willie would. That's where I'm at. But we'll leave the vibes grade. I'm gonna put him as B+ because I don't know. I feel like A is just too hard of a grade to give. I think you can give that to like a Willie Hernangomez, right? Like that's A+ vibes. Let's look at these last two candidates. And let's talk about where we're at after this. But these last two candidates, Kristaps Porzingis and DeAndre Ayton, very very intriguing guys. I think controversial guys for different reasons. Definitely big dollar tag players. But first and foremost, let's look at Porzingis. Wow, again, all of these bigs are significantly better than Jonas at protecting the rim. So it's 57.9% for Porzingis, which almost ties him with Myles Turner. Near equivalent grade there, 57.9%. Really, really good there. Let's look at his defensive rebounding percentage. All right. Defense and rebounding. So for his career, he's been around the 20% range, 22.9% last year when he was in Washington, like that second half of it. 19.9% this year for Porzingis, which is right in line with all of our other players. You can see there is a significant gap between any of the players we've looked at and Jonas. Like Jonas is singularly elite on this front. But good to know. Let's look at his defensive rebounding on offs. I remember when we had a pod the other day, and I was like, "Wow, is he like?" When we're talking about Lowry versus Kristaps, and I took umbrage at the fact that you said he was a better defensive rebounder than Lowry, and it turns out he is. He's actually a better defensive rebounder than Lowry. What am I looking at here? Here we go. So for his career, the defensive rebounding has been good to great when he's on the court. Like he's had a good impact on the rebounding front. I think that's good to know. I'm certainly surprised by that because he has this perception of being soft, right?
He's also 7'3", and that helps a little bit.
Just a little, just a little. I think this is interesting. The foul rate when he's been on the court has been like really, really good. Like he's not I'm guessing he's not a high foul player, and that's super interesting, especially given the fact that like right now Jonas is fouling like every 3 minutes. Most of them have been offensive fouls, but still, like this is good data in my opinion. The defense in general has been hit or miss with him on the court. He started off really strong when he was in New York, first year in Dallas, and then you got the Dallas. It was really bad that year. He's also been injured, right? So like he's been injured pretty much his whole career. I don't know if he's played more than 40, 50 games in any kind of season. I think that's also something to weigh in with regards to his fit and acquisition costs. But this year, again, Washington is just terrible every single year, so it's hard for me to parse that. But just not having a good impact on a bad defense. That's I don't want to say concerning, but it's noteworthy, right? Plus 0.6.
Random aside, we're talking about big men and rebounding. The Nuggets are down by 12 with like basically 3 minutes into the second quarter. They're down 36-24 to Charlotte. Jokic has 14 rebounds.
Wow.
We're 3 minutes into the second quarter. He has 14 rebounds. He's coming for Zubats in the 30 rebound game that he had.
He's coming for Wilt at this rate. Yeah, 50.
Yeah, seriously.
That's crazy. That is absolutely wild. Let's look at, what were we looking at? We didn't put the rebounding on off here. That's what we missed here. It was 2.1%. It was minus 2.1%.
That's good.
Yeah, Bamba was not good on that front. And then now we're gonna look at his. Let's talk about his threes. He takes the most amount of threes out of any of the bigs that we looked at. Like he again, when defenses are faced with the opportunity of defending Kristaps or Zion, they will always choose Zion. But the attempts that he gets up makes him a difficult cover. His percentages have been like sort of hit or miss throughout his career. I think he's a streaky guy. He can certainly like light it up. He can have games where he explodes for 7, which I think is an important variable. I think it gives a team a dynamic, even if his individual percentage isn't that high. When someone's attempting those number of threes, like any given game, a person could take over and be an X factor.
Yeah, it is very interesting because if you look year to year, he's gone 30. So every single year of his career, he's taken at least 225 threes, which is pretty nuts. But he's gone 33%, 36%, 39.5%, 35, 38, 31, and then this year he's at 34. And so he really has been all over the map. But I guess he's the one guy. I haven't watched him enough recently to make a call one way or the other. But he's one guy I could say that maybe defenses do care a little bit more just because of the volume he gets up. The data doesn't suggest they should, but there's a little bit of there could be some connectivity there because is he shooting lower because teams are do care when he starts spotting up versus some of the other bigs we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both agree he's not like the world's best shooter, but I do think out of any player that we've looked at, he is probably the best of the group in terms of both volume, attempt, and respect that he garners from there, and the level of difficulty of his shots. Like, we've seen him come off screens or just it's like just launch from 29, like from tray range. He does that stuff on a regular to keep the defense on the toes, and that's an element that like Myles Turner simply just not doing as a big. So or John Collins for that matter, or even Mo Bamba, like they're just not doing that kind of stuff. So 3-point attempt rate, 34% of his shots are coming from 3. Obviously, he is the most prolific scorer of anyone that we've looked at so far. His efficiency has been pretty solid this year. He's had the highest PER of anyone that we've looked at this year, and he's averaging 22 points a game, 8 rebounds, giving you a block and a half. Interesting to me, like early in his career, he was averaging 2-ish blocks a game, and It seems like as guys age, like the block numbers go down, but I also think it's because of like how spaced out the NBA has become. There's just less opportunity for some of those blocks. But yeah, he's having a really good season, averaging 22 points a game. He's shooting 55% from 2, 80% from the free throw
something I drop in here on the conversation of 3-point percentage. So this season, as far as number of threes per game that are wide open, looking on NBA stats site, Porzingis has taken 2.6 wide open per game, and he's taken kind of 2.8 per game that was either tight or open, so non-wide open shots. Myles Turner, for comparison's sake, is taking roughly the same amount of wide open shots as Porzingis, but only 1.1 are coming from open or tight. And so I think Porzingis is also taking more contested shots too. So that would kind of back up this assertion that Porzingis is shooting more, but teams also care more, and so he's being defended more tightly. So something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, definitely. He's gotten 661 attempts, even though he's missed a big chunk of games every single year. He played 51 games last season, 43 the season before, 57, the season before, 48, 66. Like, he's played above 60 games twice in his career. That's concerning.
That's very much so. Very much so.
Especially given that his contract is an enormous, 33 million this year with a player option, or 33.8, which is close to 34, a player option for 36. That is a huge contract. It would be a very, very risky move, to say the least. But let's look at let's finish out the rest of his stats and talk about him. So we want to look at his rim accuracy, rim on off, and then talk about the vibes. The vibes are not going to be good with him.
I don't think they're going to be good. No.
No, they're not. Wow. I mean, he's had a significant impact on rim shot frequency throughout his whole career. Last year, in Washington, 6.5%. That's pretty wild. But minus 2.5%. So let's do that here, which puts him not at the Jonas leaderboard. Jonas still leads at that. That is wild to me. We're going to look at the accuracy when he's on the court. Say for that little stint in Washington last year, it's been pretty elite his whole career. Being 7'3" helps.
Yep.
So the two biggest people that we've looked at, Jonas and Kristaps, do well in this metric. We may be onto something here. I keep mixing my tabs up. 3.7%. This makes him the leaderboard leader in the clubhouse in the stat. So vibes, bad vibes.
We got to talk contract first.
Oh yeah, talk contract.
So 34 million this year. Yeah. I mean, so on the one hand, he's probably picking up that extension next year. I would think that's a safe bet that he's picking up $36 million. I mean, I guess there's a chance that he just wants to get the bag or try to get one more bag as quickly as possible. Because how old is he now? Porzingis is he's 27 and a half. I guess I thought he was older for some reason, but
if you're as injury prone as he is, like, do you lock into the 36 now, or if someone put 4 years, 100 million, do you grab that?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question. And because I think also, especially if he has a healthy year this year, like if he's able to stay on the floor and play like 70 games, can he try to maximize that? And while he's not going to get an annual value at 36, I think your point is well taken that why not just try to get the contract. And so if that's the case, he presents a very similar concern as Myles Turner. And is that the guy you want to pay quarter like $25 million?
Turner hasn't been healthy himself.
Yeah.
That's the other thing we didn't talk about with Turner. He's also been injury prone and missed time. Yeah. But yeah, no, sorry. Continue with Porzingis.
No. I mean, and look, any guy who's that tall is, there's there are inherent risks with players of that size. That's all. I guess that's really all needs to be said there. So yeah, I mean, if he opts out, you've got a big decision to make on your hands. And so that should be a factor here. But look, the Wizards have lost a ton of games recently. And do you see any
13?
Yeah. Do you see any other team that's like a playoff team or a team trying to make a real run having any real interest in taking on his $30 million or so? Like maybe the acquisition cost is
the Lakers
small.
The Lakers would, right?
I said a team actually trying to contend though. So
yeah,
that's gotta be plan Y or Z for them. But yeah, so
does Portland do it? Like with you throw Nurkic in there, you throw some of those other folks in there.
Does that move the needle for them?
More so than their current, position.
Yeah, no, fair. I mean, so yeah, I guess the question is like, because
I feel like he'd be a good fit with Luka. I wonder how that would look like.
And Brunson, how about him?
Oh God.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm certainly willing to roll the dice on Porzingis, what his decision is going to make on his contract. If we're not talking about like having to trade a first round pick to go get him, like I think that's a worthwhile consideration.
Miami's interesting because you could put Duncan Robinson's contract and then Dedmon and whatever others.
Putting Bam and Porzingis together.
That's interesting, right? I mean, they're playable together.
I think they tried that in Minnesota and hasn't gone that well so far.
I don't know, man, because Rudy Gobert is like on another level of limited when as an offensive player.
Yeah, I feel it.
Like Porzingis and Towns, you can call that like a wash in terms of skill set. Obviously, Towns is a better scorer, better shooter. But in terms of the areas they occupy on the court, Porzingis likes to play from the perimeter rather than the inside. Bam likes to play interior. I don't think it would be a bad fit, right? If we're saying Bam and Porzingis can't fit, then why would Zion and Porzingis fit? I guess. Well, Zion attacks on the perimeter, but I don't know. Bam's really versatile. I think they would fit.
I'm not a soul, but I look.
But Miami continuing to invest in big money in injury-prone players would be interesting, right? With Jimmy Butler already having like 40-50 million invested in his deal. Kyle Lowry, yeah, that's tough. That's a tough look. Let's talk about acquisition costs. So I think it would have to involve Jonas, right? So the trade I put out there was Jonas, Devontae, and Jackson. I think that's the trade I put out there for Porzingis. So again, it's Jonas and the Pelicans can reach salary with non-core players. The only core player involved would be Jonas. Are you putting a protected pick in there?
No, I'm not. Jonas has value. Like I guess that's the thing I want to make sure we're clear about here is like this isn't like Jonas has gone from a good NBA center to salary Flotsam in a month. I think that you can craft a trade around that package and maybe it's a couple seconds. And I don't know. I'm really hard pressed to think that I'm going to need a first round pick to go get him if I'm including Jonas in that deal. Maybe heavily.
Yeah,
heavily
it's tough.
protected.
I mean, Jonas having money on the books next year is also helpful for them. For them to use as a trading point or as expiring or whatever. I think that's tough. So if you had to do again, we use the John Collins measure of would you do the CJ trade for him, which was. Josh Hart, Nikhil. What was the rest of the salary that we sent? Darius Miller? No.
So it was Didi. It was Nikhil, Hart. Josh Hart. Satoransky.
Oh, Satoransky. Oh my God.
We've come so far.
If we
forgot that he was on the team, we've come so far.
Would you do the CJ trade for Porzingis?
No, no, I wouldn't.
I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah,
I would probably do it. Gun to my head, I'd do it. The reason I would do it, and we'll talk about the vibes in a second, which are probably like the worst of anybody. The reason I would do it is out of all of the players that we've targeted, he's the singular person with the highest ceiling in terms of his play and his ability to like raise your ceiling as a team. And that's the bet that Dallas made and failed. And someone else talked about him not liking playing with Luka. So why would he like playing with Zion and Ingram? And I think there's a couple factors here. So same thing with Trey, same thing with Luka. Those two are ball dominant in a way that just no other players are in this league. They just aren't. And then they have like prickly personalities on top of that. So I think, I think those are variables that you have to account for when you're trying to figure out like why they didn't like playing with a certain player, like and the system that those teams decided to run. Willie Green, again, we're going back to this idea that he'll actually use his bigs and they won't be just an accessory to offense. Willie Green has still made an relatively like egalitarian offense where the ball moves and flows and people get touches. So I think that's a little bit of a less concern for me. But again, it could just be projecting a level of optimism. But he is like the one player on this team that can give you 30 like every third night. Or he can explode for something that's just like unreasonable that other players like don't like end up touching. And I think that intrigues me more so than any of the players that we've listed. And I think it's worth the bet. If you lose a protected pick because of it, so what? I mean, they have a lot more. They have a lot more protected picks.
I think your way of describing is good. Like there's so many variables here. Like what's the, like, if you're not going to get him, what's the next best deal too? Right. What's the alternative? But man, it's tough for me to put up even like if we're talking more heavily protected than what went to Portland, I can start to think about it. I just, what's coming up with him next offseason is a big factor for me. Like if, I don't know, if even I want to say like if he had one more year guaranteed and he couldn't opt out and then create chaos in free agency, would that matter to me? But $36 million is a lot of money too. And so you have to do some real work around the roster if you're going to, to make that fit too. So the money matters. It's real.
I mean, again, like the Lakers could be a cap space team and they could just throw him a bag. Like that could be something they do. I would, would I be fine with that? Probably, given the fact that if they want to invest long-term money in AD and Porzingis, that is certainly an approach. But again, that's the same risk that the Pels have to weigh as well. That is a risk. Vibes, I think the reporting on him hasn't been great. There also was some sexual assault allegations with him back in New York, although I tried really hard to Google the outcome of those. And the last thing I read was Chris Stapps's lawyers and the league were looking into an extortion situation. And the person alleging the sexual assault stuff, they were looking into the fact that she was trying to extort money from him. And since like 2019, like the reporting on that has just fell off the face of the earth. So that's something the Pelicans would have to do their like heavy due diligence on, and figure out, where that case stands. That's something to consider. And then, obviously like the other stuff about like touches, wanting to be the guy, et cetera, not liking Luka. I don't think you could just hand wave that stuff away. The fact that he, forced his way out of New York. He forced his way out of New York. Like, let's be real about what he did. So those are, I would say vibes. I would say lowest. I want to say F, right?
I mean, it's bad. It's bad.
want to say F. There's like a real downside with the vibes here. So let's just blow through DeAndre Ayton really quickly. We've already spent 2 hours on this. Let's get through DeAndre Ayton and figure out where we are and wrap this up. So I'm just gonna go through this really quickly and let's do that. Ayton, 63%. Ooh, not great. We're finally seeing another dude in the 60s. That's interesting. So he has been fantastic at protecting the rim on an individual level. Let's look at his defensive rebounding percentage. 23.3%, really solid defensive rebounder for his whole career. Again, not Jonas levels, but no one is. Jonas is perhaps one of the best defensive rebounders in the league. I keep messing up my tabs. 3.3%. Really good. Our second best here. Defensive rebounding on.
Jokic update. 1 minute left in the first half. 21 rebounds.
Holy shit. Steve Clifford, he's playing the Hornets, right?
Yeah.
Steve Clifford is going to tear those dudes a new one.
Mason Plumlee might be available for peanuts after this game, so maybe we should just go after him.
Dude. Oh my god, I'm not. Oh my gosh, yeah, Steve Clifford, he might resign out of just like pure anger.
He really might. Oh man.
Anyways, interesting thing about Ayton, he has not had a positive impact on the defense in the last few years. In fact, the Phoenix defense is 5.3% or 5.3 points per 100 possessions worse with him on the court this year. That's kind of nutty. That's a little concerning.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who is like because the starting line has been pretty in flux for Phoenix, right?
He plays with Mikal and them, His backup's Jock Landale.
Dario Saric.
Biyombo, Busy. Oh yeah, dude. Don't forget about Busy. That's crazy.
That's weird. That's real weird.
That's really crazy to me. So we're looking at defensive rebounding on offs, and then we're gonna look. You already put there. Yeah, he's not really a 3-point shooter. We don't really got to talk about him from 3. Let's go look at his defensive rebounding on offs. Really just not a positive impact on the defensive glass or at any point in his career. I mean, except for when he was a rookie. And I think they played him a lot at the 4 when he was a rookie.
Just real quick, we punted on Bam just in the interest of time because we just ultimately decided, is he that attainable? And so we're trying to focus on guys that maybe are more attainable than Bam. I don't really see the Heat moving him. Nothing's impossible, but I think on the list he's probably fairly unlikely.
Yeah, I think with Bam we decided if he became available, we would be willing to send multiple picks just to get it done. So that's someone that you go all in for. But we left it at that. But yeah, so DeAndre Ayton not having a good impact on the rebounding. Very interesting to note. 0.9%, and then not really a 3-point shooter. I'm gonna skip his 3-point attempt rate. No, it doesn't really matter. Let's look at his opponent 3-point rim frequency actually. So again, just his defensive markers are really mediocre. I'm kind of surprised by this given everything. I thought he would be a better fit. So that was what, plus 2.1%. That's kind of surprising. Are you surprised with how bad these are turning out to be?
I am, but also if we think about the Suns were just so dominant in the last couple of years.
Look at this. This is nuts. It's so bad. Sorry, continue.
No, I mean, on off is tough because the Suns' last couple of years have been just straight up dominant, and so even
they should be good because of that, right? Because he plays a lot of time with their best players.
Yeah, you would think so, but also I feel like that kind of the broader point is that even the off stats for Phoenix, the team that won like 60 plus games, is probably not that bad. So, but it is. I mean, I'm surprised to say the least.
Well, wait. Let's look at his like regular on-offs, right? Let's just last year he made the offense better, didn't make the defense better. This year they've just been straight up better on both ends. So it looks like pretty consistently he's had a positive impact on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, just not really. That's interesting. Yeah, the markers on him very questionable. But that again, that's another guy that desperately needs a change of scenery. Uh, they did not want to pay him. Let's talk about that in terms of vibes. He signed a 4-year max. He's only going to get 5% raises because it was an offer sheet that he signed from the Pacers, and he, Monty Williams had benched him in the finals, and they said it was internal. Um, when that came out, wait, no, not in the finals. It was in the whatever playoff series, right? The most recent playoff series was at Dallas. Dallas was the one where they melted out. But they benched him. They said it was internal. They didn't want to pay him. They've kind of, they didn't extend it when they had a chance. They didn't want to pay him in restricted free agency. Just doesn't seem like he's a part of their future. And I don't know what his vibes on this team would be, but I would assume they'd be better than in a place where he's wanted than where he's not wanted. Mm-hmm. But I can't pretend that they're going to be good. Yep. Willie Green knows him firsthand. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. So what would you trade for? So let's talk about our trade options. The same thing that we offered for Collins, would you give that up for Ayton?
Before the season, I would have told you no. Now I think I would.
Why is that?
Probably biased from watching him just beat the Pelicans relentlessly. But no, I mean, I feel like he was a guy who Willie would trust to play in crunch time a lot of times, which that's the starting point for this, right? It has to be. And you even referenced it in your in the additional column you were talking about adding. It's like, would Willie play in the crunch time against in important games? And I think for Ayton, the answer would have to be the answer is yes. And I think he obviously, look, numbers be damned. He helps your rebounding. The defense itself is another question entirely, but he definitely helps your rebounding. He's not going to, and that's been one of the Pelicans' biggest issues recently without Jonas.
But he helps you. I would say he would help you more on the rebounding than Nance would. His on-offs on the Suns are bad, but from his individual defensive rebounding is good. So you have Zion and him out there at the end of games, you're probably giving up less offensive rebounds than Zion or Nance, right? That's kind of the metric stick.
Yep. Yeah, we agree.
I think Ayton. I think he would make this offense unguardable more so than really fix any defensive things, and I think for two reasons. One, I think the pressure that he puts at the rim with his lob threat would add such a unique element to the pick and roll game for the Pelicans. That's just something they haven't had unless Jackson Hayes is playing, and he really doesn't know what he's doing in the pick and roll. And so if you run those with CJ, with Ingram, with Zion, that's just teams have to account for that in a way that they just haven't had to account for with Jonas because of his mobility and athleticism. And two, I really do think his ability to score just seems like he's automatic from mid range, and his touch at the rim is exquisite. He's 70-80% at the rim consistently throughout his career, and that really stabilizes the non-Zion units in my opinion. So he would be an offensive acquisition more so than a defensive one. And I think it would be okay, if you want to hit the Larry button, we can to really ramp up our defense. But for the most part, we're going to play through Ayton, be unguardable in offense.
Ayton or Porzingis?
Shit. I think the answer is Ayton, just intangibles considered. But I think if this was 2K,
too.
What's up?
How much you'd have to trade to get him has to play in here.
Oh yeah, that's true. It can't be that much to get Ayton.
You think?
Right? He's over. I mean, he's overpaid. He's on a max. He's not a max player. And I think it would take a pick with less protections than it would take. Obviously he's going to cost more than Porzingis. But But I just think just variables considered, the personalities involved, the stability, like what you're gonna get out of Ayton. Like that he's gonna like largely be healthy. That stuff is probably more valuable to this team than the uncertainty Porzingis brings. But if this was 2K, I'd take Porzingis. If this was 2K, out of all of these bigs, I would just import Porzingis, have fun with that lineup, go deal with it. Because the other thing out of I think all of these bigs, although I think, with Turner, Collins, and Bamba, you could say this is also the case. But with Porzingis, he really makes it so Larry can play with him. Like Larry and Porzingis, that's a viable combination, which actually might be terrifying on defense. And I think you could probably do that with Turner, but the offense is not going to be great unless you have good creators out there. And with Collins and Bamba, I think again similar concerns. But Porzingis out of any of these really enables Larry at the 4 more so than Ayton would.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would have to stagger the Larry Ayton minutes, but I'd be down to try it.
Yeah,
I'd be down to try it. So I'm just gonna put C for Ayton's vibes.
Okay.
Just in summary, to sum it up for everyone, let's sort of rank these, right? In terms of who we would want the Pels to really go after and invest their resources in. So the first one, I personally think I would keep Jonas over Turner if the cost to acquire him is a pick and an extension that that is 20 million or more. If he's willing to extend for Jonas money, I think that materially changes my view on it. And I think what would also change my view on it is if I had 100% assurance that Willie would play him over Nance.
Yeah, we completely agree on Myles Turner. So nothing more to add. I think that's, I feel like it feels a little bit like the Lonzo conversation we had about well, if you take this contract, then we want to keep him around,
Yeah. Number 2, Collins. I think Collins has ended up being my biggest surprise throughout this. I hadn't seen his numbers. I was surprised with how well he protects his rim protection numbers bear out, and I was surprised with how well those non-Capella minutes bear out when you remove the trade factor from them. And I think that Collins would be someone that is relatively cheap to acquire and would only probably take minimal draft compensation to do so. He's under contract for a while, so again, you're still raising those tax concerns, but I low-key think in totality, he might be my favorite get out of all of these guys. Given all of the variables that we see on our screen, everything we talked about from the vibes and everything perspective, Collins might be my favorite one. I just think that you'd probably get vulnerable. You'd probably be vulnerable to bigger teams. But think about it. If Jokic has to score, if you're just Jokic has to post up and go through Collins the whole game and then guard him on the other end as a lob threat and all of that, as the mobile big that he is, then he's probably going to get spent. And if you think about it in terms of a playoff series, right? He's probably going to get exhausted. That's the way I think about it. A lot of those bigs, at least Collins would make them work in a way that I don't think Turner makes anyone's work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Collins. Some of the metrics did surprise me, and as we dug deeper, it's Capella obviously makes an impact, but not as much of one. Almost like if you remove the Okongwu data too, Collins at the 5 held up, and which is he's 6'9", so you'd be talking about we're playing it fits Larry Nance definition, right? He's a 6'9", so he fits in the switchable lineup. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm grading out better than I expected defensively, and I would definitely be into the idea if the cost isn't too high. And I'm with you. Definitely go for him more than before I go for Turner.
I think he has more of the it factor that would lead me to believe that they would play him and be willing to incorporate him in his talents rather than I think if they just got Turner, they'd be like, oh, stand. Space it out, just get out the way for our guys. I think that's what it would be for Turner. Bamba, I think we've talked about is that's a move you could do today, and really not shake anything up. Just go get him on the roster. Put Jackson in the trade. Put put Temple in the trade and not really, put. I would put like a second or two in there. That's a trade you could do today. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's a little bit of his own category. I think that's a fine trade. Like they can experiment with him.
Yep.
Would you? So I think with Bamba, just going back to it, like if you had to pick a starting center for the rest of the season, Bamba or Jonas, if you had to pick one, who are you picking?
Jonas.
Yeah, right. No question. Cool. Glad we're on that. Porzingis.
If this team didn't look like as good as they were, maybe my answer changes. But like on a developmental team, maybe I want Bamba because the upside's there, but definitely not for this team.
Yeah. Porzingis, I would. So I think right now my leader is John Collins. John Collins is like my favorite acquisition. I'm torn between Porzingis and Ayton. For who my second favorite acquisition would be. I would say the downside with Porzingis is so significant that it has to like knock him down in the rankings. That's where I would lie. Like that's where my head is at.
Yeah, I mean it's combustible. I guess what the downside is that pronounced though. I mean, it's not like you're locking him into a long-term contract. You've got the year to figure it out, maybe even next season if he opts in.
Well, you would have to. You're right. Yeah, like the long-term salary obligation is quite minimal on him. But you would need to then make a trade for Bamba or like even a Plumlee, like something to stabilize your big man rotation when Porzingis inevitably misses games.
Yep.
And that's someone you're going to have to load manage.
Mm-hmm.
But where I have the biggest questions is like, you're deep in a playoff run. Like, is Porzingis going to hold up against the best teams there, both defensively? Well, just mostly defensively. And I think probably not, but I just think the offense would be so unstoppable. I think the offense would be completely unguardable with him out there.
Yep.
All right, and then Ayton's the final guy. So my personal rankings, you can share yours. My personal rankings would be Collins, Ayton, Porzingis, keep Jonas, Turner, and then I think Bamba's his own category because it's not an either or with him and Jonas.
Yeah, Bamba's is kind of outside. I'm with you on Turner being the lowest out of the group.
Is that fair for us? Because he like based off the state, like the objective stats that we've put up there, he grades out quite well. Is that bias on our part?
Yes, to a degree. I think it certainly is. I think it would be faulty to not acknowledge that. I think that there is some just confirmation bias that we're bringing into this. But however, I significantly weight that contract concern, which also impacts my Porzingis rating as well. That said, I feel like Porzingis is attainable for a lower cost than Myles Turner. And so like it's a confluence of factors that make me a little sour on Turner's fit, as well as I don't buy the defensive rebounding numbers because of the support of Sabonis throughout this. I think that's a little bit of fool's gold, and I think we have enough data throughout the course of his career to suggest he's not really a good, an impactful team or individual or team defender or rebounder. Sorry. So I am, for all those reasons, I'm a little bit lower on Turner. I think my hardest decision is my one biggest wild card is what the acquisition cost for DeAndre Ayton would be, because the Suns are trying to contend still. So if you're going to trade Ayton, who's certainly if you took Ayton off that team, they're not contenders anymore. They're not. And so I think I'm a little bit lower, have Ayton a little bit lower on the list than you, not because of fit with the Pelicans, because I think that I think you're going to have to pay up to get him, just because you got to be replacing Ayton with something meaningful. Like if you flip Ayton with Jonas on that Suns team, How much worse is Phoenix?
I don't know, because the data is saying they're really not that bad without him right now.
It's a fascinating question, right? Like, I think that's huge in terms of what
Because
you
that
would.
team is Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Bridges, and all of that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
Aiden's a part of it, but like every time he's missed time, like and Landale and Bismack have stepped in, they've been okay.
Yeah.
Like, and that goes back to last year too.
Yeah. So look, man, maybe you sell the Suns ownership on taking paying someone
That's the
half
thing
as much.
with what you need to sell him on is A, it's you're breaking those salary components apart,
Yep.
and B, whatever pick stuff that you're getting, you would then be able to use in this summer. So if it was like Devontae and Jonas, for example, to make that happen, those guys are expiring, so they can attach the picks that they've gotten, their existing picks, to go make that splashy trade, that buy-in trade that they've been trying to do, since the Kevin Durant stuff hit the airwaves. So like that would be the sell, but how front offices work.
Yeah. So I'm with you on Collins being the top option here. I think unless the Porzingis acquisition cost is so low that you can get him, and the biggest risk is just the salary, and like, because then.
So just like Jonas, Devontae, Jackson, like.
Yeah. So I don't.
That's possible. I mean, that's how Washington got him. They sent Bertans' salary, dude.
Yeah. Geez, talk about waste of space.
Bertans and Dinwiddie, that's what they sent to get him.
So I think Collins. I mean, I know Collins is probably my favorite on this list, but it is like, it's, he has a fairly large contract, and so you've got to be sure that he's gonna improve the team in all the ways you need him to improve the team and be on the floor when things matter. And if you can do that at a cost that isn't too significant, then I think it's a worthwhile move. Otherwise, if you can really just kind of steal Porzingis away from Washington for seconds and salary matching, then that's got to be something you look at, because I mean, I think he makes the offense more dynamic, and there's plenty, and that you just went through all the good data about how he's a positive impact on the defense and the rebounding.
Yeah, I think the Collins stuff is super interesting to me for the future, because I can then now see a future where you're starting Dyson and Trey, and your starting lineup is Dyson, Trey, Zion, Collins, and BI, and all of those people are in the same age group, and they're kind of locked in for the same amount of time. Obviously, CJ's locked in because of his extension, but I'm seeing a future where he's coming off the bench, and that would be a huge lineup that isn't huge at one position. You know what I mean? Like, it's not huge at the center position, but like your point guard 6'7", your two guard is like 6'9", and then there's Brandon Ingram and Zion. And those, I think we were probably brushing aside his like the rebounding concerns that Colin would bring. Like, Collins Zion lineups probably get out rebounded on the balance, even though like he held up pretty well. But I do think the Pelicans have the pieces to make the lineups pretty good. Anyways, we've gone on for 2.5 hours. This is about the length of a Lord of the Rings movie. So we're gonna wrap this up. Do a quick shout out to DraftKings. If you guys are familiar with DraftKings, they are a sports betting company, and you can use our promo code BOOT on their app, the DraftKings Sportsbook app, to place any $5 bet on any NBA money line. Get $150 in free bets. Again, you can use the promo code BOOT, BOOT, on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. If you or anyone has gambling issues, you need crisis counseling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So shout out DraftKings. Let me make sure to get BOOT on our screen right here. Use that code. But yeah, appreciate y'all for tuning in with us for 2.5 hours on your evening. Thank y'all.
See y'all.